Okay, welcome everybody to the Black Channel Partner Power Forum. We're really excited today to have everyone here. We know that it's been a long break. We're all excited about the year 2022, and we're really excited about our new special first of the year guest, Joseph Henderson, today. And we're going to talk a little bit about him and why we believe his story is a great story, not only just for you, but for every single partner that's here today. And we want to get some insights from him, share some wisdom that he has gathered over the years that's going to allow you to excel and grow your Microsoft practice. So we're really excited about having him. Let's go ahead and look at some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about the board. So really excited about sharing our leadership team. We have Nyasha, we have Frank, and everyone knows Frank, one of the most well-known person in the industry today as well. He was a former D&I chair for the IAMCP. We have Jason Roberts, our marketing guru, myself, and then our new board leader, David Suk Brown as well. So please make sure that you take some time today and go meet with people, go speak with them, go talk to everybody. We're really excited about you meeting everybody here on the board. But not only that, make sure that you network and make sure that you go meet with other people that you have not met before. A great opportunity for P2P. Now, if you're new and you don't know who the Black Channel Partner Alliance is, you know nothing about us, we are on a mission. And everyone knows that our mission is simple. We want to scale Black-owned tech firms. We want to not just scale them a little bit, we want to scale them dramatically. We want to make sure we help these owners build high-performance, community-focused, sustainable next-generation channel partners. Our goal is to make sure that our partners here today not only grow their business, but grow it in a very unique way, a very fast way, but also give back to the community because we do care about the community, as well as our partnership with Microsoft, the TSI team. We want to make sure we give back and take care of the other nonprofits that are out there today. We do have a special announcement. You guys get an opportunity to see this. Actually, with this picture in the background, we had an opportunity to meet with the Microsoft leadership team back in Maryland, in Frank's back of his neck of the woods. And then from there, it's great to be able to say we're growing. So we're adding David Brown to the leadership team. He's going to help us to make sure that we continue to stay focused, that we can continue to scale. And we're really excited about that. We also want to let you guys know that our next upcoming Power Forum will be on the 18th of February. And then, of course, our yearly event, the most important event of the whole year, is our Rise event. We'll have the Microsoft leadership team. We'll have a party. We'll make sure that we have all of the key people from Microsoft there. Our key sponsors are going to be at this event. They'll give you an opportunity to work with the sponsors. We'll have great opportunities to network, but then we'll entertain you. We'll have a great speaker. We'll have some great musicians. This is going to be our yearly event that's going to be phenomenal and very excited. So very excited to have you guys at this event. Now, at this moment, before we move forward to anything else, make sure you guys use the chat button to chat with each other. Make sure that you take the time to get to know each other. At this moment, I'd like to present Joseph, and then Joseph also can present your slides, or you can do them yourself if you're ready.
Hey, Danny, before you jump into Joseph's presentation, I just wanted to say Happy New Year to everyone. A couple things. I'm going to put some content here in the chat that's very important. So there's 3 links I'm sharing with everybody that I want you guys to, if you haven't already done so, these are some things I want you to take action on today. Again, here we are at the beginning of 2022. I'm looking forward to an amazing year. 2021 was just an amazing year, specifically with our partnership with the Microsoft Black Partner Growth Initiative, which is just amazing. And so there's 3 things here I want to highlight. One is, if you haven't done so already, please register for our the BCPA growth program. You'll see the link there at the top. The marketplace as well. It's an opportunity for you to post your company information. And the goal there is we're going to be hopefully here very soon posting opportunities. And it's an opportunity for you to identify and find other partners that you can team with. And last but certainly not least is a link to the Microsoft Black Partner Growth Initiative. If you haven't already signed up for that, please do so. So those are kind of the 3 action items that if you haven't already taken those actions today, please do so. And then last but not least, I did put a link to my LinkedIn information. I'd love to connect with you because, again, one of the other things that this Power Forum and this forum is about, it's an opportunity for us as owners of Black-owned tech companies to come together and fellowship. Again, I know from my experience personally, it can be lonely, right? As a leader, who do you talk to, right? My wife sure as hell doesn't want to hear about my issues and challenges about the business, right? So this is an opportunity for you to fellowship and network with one another. And along those lines, kind of, what I'd like to do now is really, introduce our guest here. We've got a phenomenal opportunity today here, folks, and having Joseph Henderson here. He's one of the top performing Microsoft partners, just an amazing individual. You're going to get to hear from him directly how he has leveraged his Microsoft partner experience to really grow an amazing organization. So get ready, sit back, take some notes, be ready to engage and ask questions along the way. If there's any issues that you have, we'll hold those to the end, but also stay with us afterwards where you'll be able to network with one another as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joseph. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Good deal. Good deal. Hi, my name is Joseph Henderson. I'm the president and CEO of ECF Data. We're an IT services company based in Las Vegas, Nevada, but with national reach. I'm bringing up my slide presentation right now. Are you guys able to see it? I hope you guys are able to see the slide deck now. All right, so ECF Data, so we're IT services based in Las Vegas, Nevada. Today's agenda, I'll kind of walk through these bullet items, an introduction to myself, which I normally never do, but I was asked to in this presentation. And thanks, Frank, for that introduction. I appreciate it. You were building me up. I feel pretty hype over here now. But we're going to about ECF, which I kind of covered that just a second ago. Our service offering, our Microsoft Power slide, our customers, and then kind of go into what our yearly planning looks like, goal process, how I built the Microsoft pipeline, and then 10 things I did to succeed as a partner, and then we kind of go into questions. So a little bit about me. Been in IT since the late 90s, and I kind of did it out of necessity. I was going to USC. I had got my girlfriend pregnant at the time, which is now my wife. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was still kind of, circling around trying to figure those things out. Actually, back then, I wanted to be a mechanical engineer and make toys. But then I lost a bet at one night at a party and got into computers. And then I come to actually to love them. And so out of necessity, when she got pregnant, I started to look for a job. And I was studying computers, but I really hadn't found my niche of kind of what I want to do. And like always, I just kind of got lucky and fell into it and got an internship. From that internship was with an ISP. And when that internship, I was able to get another job with another ISP. And that ISP, back then, everything was pretty much Unix in terms of what we were running. That's what we learned in college. And what a lot of systems we were running on that are some kind of mainframe system or an IBM type platform. And so Microsoft was, had to play on the desktop side, but they were really starting to get into the server applications. And so I was at an ISP. Microsoft gave them the licensing for Exchange 5.5. Actually, it was 5.0 then 5.5, and said, hey, I was only about 21, 22 years old at the time. They said, hey, once you go try to figure this out. And that was kind of my introduction to Microsoft. I ended up figuring it out. I actually ended up clustering one of the first Exchange 5.5 systems back then. And at that point, Microsoft came back and was like, well, how the hell did you get this done? What did you do? And so I kind of walked them through it. And then they immediately started, recruited me to start deploying Exchange 5.5 in Fortune 500 companies up and down the West Coast. And so I did that for a long time. And then with 5.5, they went to Exchange 2000 and 2003. And then during that course of that time, they got Active Directory introduced. And so I, of course, learned that. One of the first was to learn that, because before it was just the directory service inside of Exchange 5.5. And then in 2001, because of that, that's when I first started my first technology company. And it was really still based around deploying Microsoft solutions. And so the reason I did that was really, you look at what your paycheck was as a W-2 employee, and then you look what some of the consultants were making. And back then it was $200 an hour. And I think it'd be 21, 22, 23 and making 60 grand, that's still a lot of money, particularly close compared to my friends. But I was seeing what they were making. I was like, oh, how do I do that? And that's really how I ended up starting the first company, was just out of, once again, necessity to say, hey, I want to make more money. How do you do it? You start a company, and then you get paid as a 1099. And so I did that for a long time, and actually kind of got burned out and took a couple of years off and did some other things, opened up a restaurant, did some things, did some traveling, etc. And then towards the end of me getting back into really back into computers and working, 2008 hit. And so then at that point, I took a full-time job at Fox Entertainment Group down in Los Angeles. From there, OCS R2 had just came out, which was really the first introduction to PBX. And then once again, I got lucky. Microsoft reached out, and because they knew what I can do in terms of on the exchange side, and we partnered, or I ended up doing the deployment of OCS. Well, we started OCS, and then we turned to Link 2010, which was recently released at that point at Amgen Pharmaceuticals. At that point in 2010, it was the biggest deployment of Link in the US outside of Microsoft themselves. So it was about 35,000 seats that we deployed. And then that kind of snowballed. Once you do a deployment like that, you kind of get snowballed into other deployments. Or people want to pick your brain around that. And depending on whatever IT community that you're in, whether you're doing UC, messaging, development, the IT communities tend to be pretty small, particularly in the regions that you are, and everybody tends to know each other. So you kind of, make it relationships and you get picked up. And so at that point, that's when I spun up ECF. We remained small really to about 2 years ago. And so at that point, doing deployments was fairly a young man's game. I was being a principal consultant for quite a while at that point. And I realized, Microsoft had made it pretty clear that it was going to be cloud and enabling organizations to go to the cloud. And so at that point, I switched gears and pivoted and said, okay, we know we're going to start doing these on-prem deployments. Let's look to see how we can spin up these cloud practices. And so then at that point, about 2 years ago, I decided, maybe 2.5 years ago at this point, but I decided to do cloud enablement and spin up the 3 clouds for Microsoft. On a personal note, I'm a married man, father of 2, and I have a grandson. 2 kids are in college. Enough about me. Let's move into more about ECF. So like I was saying, we spun up the 3 clouds, right, in terms of practices. So we have modern work, we have BizApps, and we have Azure. And so modern work, we're always pretty good at. Under that umbrella, of course, is Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange. It was the other 2 that we didn't have the core competency or our know-how. And so in those 2 years, because of some of the initiative and things that I did, which I'll get to a little bit later on, Microsoft actually reached back out to me to actually start the BizApps practice within inside of ECF and kind of help me there. So in terms of our service offering, no matter the workload, we kind of go through several phases of a project. And so we generally start with the envisioning phase, then move to a planning, and then design. And so that's one of our services. Then out of the design, we go into a deployment or migration services. And then from there, we offer managed services, our support services at the end of the engagement. Through the life cycle of that engagement, we do change management and end user adoption. So we work with the organization to drive that change, and then we work with end users to drive habitual use of that product or that workload. And then we also do procurement, logistics services, and professional services. Questions? Any questions? Nope. I'll move to the next. All right. In terms of one of the things that I was asked in this presentation is kind of, what we do, because I had discussed in another engagement presentation that I did in terms of every year I go through a yearly review of the business, and it generally starts at sometime in December, and generally is always a stepped approach, right? And so I kind of start with, the envisioning. What do I see the business to look like, for next year? And that's how I came up with going to the cloud practices and developing. What do I see? What's the writing on the wall? What is for me? What is for my industry, and what I look at is what is Microsoft saying? Where are they driving? For me, since I've been working with Microsoft and around Microsoft for 20 years, I know once they make a move or a decision, they're probably the biggest and best marketing company that's out there. They push their initiatives, they push their products to get it into the business or get it to consumers. I always tell people, I remember back when I was at the ISP, which was a company called Internet Connect back then, Microsoft for Exchange was number 16 in terms of market share at that point. This is probably like 98, I think. They were number 16. By 2000, they were already in the top 3. By 2003, they were number 1. I mean, we can probably go through almost just about any product of theirs that they really put a lot of focus and dollars behind. That's probably the path that they took in terms of market share, where they started until where they are now. The only one that I always tell people that they didn't really conquer was the mobile phones, right? Somehow they let Google get in there and Android. But what people really don't know, on the back end, they own a lot of those patents to those phones because they bought a lot of them when Nortel collapsed. So they still have a play there in some capacity. So back to my envisioning phase, I go through the envisioning. I try to determine, what's out there, where do I want to take the organization. And then once I decide that, I go to a planning phase. And then I kind of plan out what does that year look like. And I have my big vision, my growth objectives, and my goals. And then I put the differentiators in there because if I'm going to go that direction from an envisioning and planning phase, what's going to separate me from the rest? How I'm going to position this to customers, position this back to Microsoft or to my other partners. Another topic to cover was, and then after I come up with my goals, for this presentation, I was asked to, kind of go into how I built the pipeline. So for me, it is really marketing to Microsoft. And then I identified this Microsoft as a customer and a partner. And the reason that I say that is that I spent a lot of money, a lot of time in terms of building sales, building marketing out to my customers, and marketing out to potential customers, and didn't really see a lot of ROI on that in terms of gaining market share, gaining customers. But I was spending a lot of money, getting a list, paying salespeople, marketing folks, doing all these things, trying to drum up business when I decided to go that direction. Well, for me, back in the envisioning phase, I said, you know what? We know that Microsoft spends millions, if not billions of dollars into marketing. Why are you spending your money? It doesn't compare. You don't have deep pockets like them. Follow what they're telling you to do from a sales play, from a marketing play, and they put out various things in terms of how to sell their solutions, how to build a practice. So then I started to spend a lot of time just learning those sales plays, just learning how to build a practice, how they want you to build a practice. Now, everybody knows there's a difference in how you do certain things in the field and then how you do certain things in terms of, preparing your business and working with a partner and what they want to see. And so you take a little bit of both. But for me, it was taking a blueprint, since I know that's been successful. I've been drinking the Kool-Aid. I was brainwashed at 21. So I knew I seen the success. I seen the growth. And so for me, it was an easy transition to say, you know what? Okay, let's stop spending dollars over here and let's just focus on what the message is, how to position to the customers that they've already written for you, they've already packaged it for you, et cetera, et cetera. So I just started following their sales play, their book of how to get this done at the small business, at the enterprise levels, in government, et cetera. And so then with that, I took it a step further. I said, okay, well then I know that they have access to customer data, but just about every business that's out there, particularly if it's more than 3 years old. So why are you still spending money trying to get leads, buy a customer list to get leads? Why not go back to the sellers of Microsoft or go back to Microsoft internal staff? Since I had worked with them and had intimate knowledge, I know that they have the access. I've been on the other side of the fence to know what access they have. It's just a matter of getting to the proper gatekeeper of that access or the data that you're looking for. So then at that point, I started, doing outbound call campaigns to various folks in Microsoft. I saw a lot of traction in the Microsoft stores. We had a local Microsoft store before they closed up that we were getting a lot of traction in. And so we started, because they couldn't transact licensing, we started to work with them to do their transaction. We would let them go ahead. They would bring us the deal to do the license, and then they would do the deal on the hardware, and then vice versa. We came across a deal that had hardware related, we would then turn over to them, and then we would keep the licensing piece of it. And so it can turn into a pretty good, fruitful relationship. So then I said, hey, why don't we just multiply that and let's call all the Microsoft stores? And then we started to do that. Excuse me. And saw a lot of good traction there. And so that's how we start to build the pipeline. And so then we, word got out. We have a partner that's willing to do nonprofit, that's willing to work with education on the licensing piece, and then still allow the stores to sell their devices and etc. And so then part of that, what I was saying in terms of marketing to them, you can do it a couple of different ways. One was, of course, doing the call campaigns, but the other thing is in their playbooks, in their messaging, they tell you what the qualifications are and what they're looking for. And so then I started to say, okay, then how do I meet all these checkboxes? What do I need to do? One was on the other side is in terms of competencies. We have about 11 or 12 competencies, 9 of them are gold. And then we have some advanced specializations. So part of that marketing is, okay, they have, when their sellers look down or when the management looks down, okay, does this partner meet the checkbox? Okay, what competencies do they have? And so I started to obtain competencies. And then I said, what else can we get? The advanced specializations. What else can we do? We do the Microsoft trainings. And then in terms of transacting, this is sales. How do you get on their radar in terms of sales? Well, the only way at that time, due to the research I was doing, was really through the direct CSP program. And so that's where we started to really focus on and trying to build that business and be a direct CSP with them and build that relationship. You can do indirect, but that indirect, you're really tied off to the distributor. It really does not give you the visibility that you would need or want into Microsoft at the indirect level, because those are to gap that. And so most of the distributors have reached out to me trying to get me to convert, but I've always turned them down. And so I wanted that relationship. I wanted to grow my relationship with Microsoft to grow. So I continue to grow the direct CSP the business in order to drive my numbers to get on the radar. And of course, once again, lucky the initiative came out. It was sad how the initiative came out in terms of what transpired for it to come out with the George Floyd death or murder. But I was prepared when this initiative started, and it opened up some additional doors. And then what the Black Alliance is doing is I think I talked to them was first, and they were the leader of the pack at this. And so my initial conversations with them, I was like, hey, I have a lot of these things that organizations like myself would want to have and to market and to grow that relationship with Microsoft. So they're here today sharing those, and as Frank was saying earlier, you want to grow this with the nonprofits. Everybody, we all want to grow. I want to see everybody see grow, and we all grow together. As Jay-Z said, what's better than one billionaire? Two, a Black billionaire, two, right? And so that's my mindset. How can we multiply this? How can we continue to grow and achieve as our organizations individually, but as together and as a culture and as a group? So I continued, my marketing efforts. And one of the things I always say that you know your strengths, but you also kind of got to know your weaknesses. And I say that is that, you know, the access that we have now as part of this program, you get access to a lot of things, but doesn't mean you necessarily have to do a lot of the things. You know, stay with your strengths and be able to execute on what you say to folks. And I take pride in my execution in doing projects. And that's another way that I've grown in terms of being able to build those practices. I didn't necessarily have a core competency for Dynamics or for Azure, but I knew that I have the resources and people in place from a project management standpoint to execute on projects. So a lot of the projects that we did initially was a partner-to-partner enablement in order to grow the business, so I can get the know-how from a technical standpoint from other organizations. But we led it from the project side, and then once we understood that, then we can continue to grow that practice out. And sometimes we do partner. Sometimes if it's you know, I think it's too big for us, I'll still bring in the partner that has that core competency, and we still may manage it from project management, or we may share resources. And so I can always, I talk to Microsoft when they ask me, I know at the enterprise level we can do teams or we can do exchange, but I won't say that we can at the enterprise level do Dynamics. We're still at the small to medium-sized business. I wouldn't say small. We're still developing that, right? So we've done several engagements, but we're still growing. And so to be realistic with yourself and to know your weaknesses is always key. And then part of in working with Microsoft, you got to have a slide. And I think everybody that's in our cohort for Microsoft has a slide similar to this that kind of outlines at a very high level what you can do in terms of your practices and what areas that you focus on. And so this kind of goes through who my key contact, which is myself, who my Microsoft contacts are, and then the various practices that we have, where we're headquartered at, where we focus at in terms of industry, some of the various things in terms of recognition, in terms of competencies, advanced specializations, GSA contracts, etc., DUNS number. And so it gives them a snapshot of you know, where you at as an organization and what you can do. These are specifically around Dynamics 365, but we have ones that's around modern work as well as one around Azure. And then so as I was saying earlier, you know, I've only been at this for 2 years, and so I was asked, you know, to kind of show where we went year over year. So I started with 0 revenue in direct sales back in July 20, and then I crossed over to $1 million in sales by May 21 of last year, just on direct CSP. And then these are some additional numbers to back that and kind of where the money. And these 2 slides are actually directly from Microsoft from a PDM pulled out of their database. Ours look a little bit different, but these are directly what they're monitoring. So it gave me insight of what they're looking at and how they analyze data. And so then we start to try to produce dashboards very similar to this in our organization, so we can marry, you know, what we're doing to what they're doing, so we can raise our visibility to the various sellers and to the various people in the organization. These are some of our customers. As you can see, it's a mixture of hodgepodge of organizations. So we stay pretty horizontal. And that's probably because of the relationship of the Microsoft store, plus some of the things that we did. We didn't know, you know, from the Microsoft store, they get leads all over the place. And so we were like, okay, we will try to work with them to facilitate those leads. So we have customers that just about in every vertical that's out there. And that's the end of my slide deck. Questions? Nope. Good deal. Frank or Danny, you there?
Thanks, Joseph. I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody joining on paying attention. One of the things that stood out real quick, Joseph, was all those gold competencies.
Yeah.
That's like the holy grail at Microsoft.
Yep. And they changed really this past year. Y22, they changed quite a bit. They were starting to change the Y21, but Y22, they changed quite a bit in terms of what they're looking for. And so it kind of goes back to, if we were talking about a year or two ago, I would have probably a different message. But today's message would be say, hey, it goes back to what I was saying in transacting with Microsoft. And the quickest way to transact with them is through CSP. There's other ways, but the quickest way that's on everybody's radar, what they're measuring against, is that CSP revenue, right? Whether it's from the modern work licensing or consumption. They even went as far now in Y22 that we're doing perpetual licensing. And then they stopped, I believe they stopped the open licensing. And then they're putting more restrictions on the EAs and what organizations can qualify for. So for anyone that's really wanting to start and improve their trajectory, CSP licensing is the way to go. And a lot of the competencies now are tied to CSP licensing in some form or fashion.
That's true. That's so true. And before Frank gets up and do his Q&A with you, I want to throw in another thing. So Joseph, the time it takes to get the silver competency, then from silver to gold competency, have you seen a lot of benefits back to you from attaining these different competencies financially, network opportunities internally at Microsoft, lead opportunities? Because there's a lot of work. Trust, I know there's a lot of work to get these competencies. A lot of people in your team have to be trained, have to go after the certifications. But at the end of the day, was it worth it? And would you encourage the rest of our audience members to actually continue to go down that path as well?
Definitely worth it. And so I had to tell people we started with one lead let's say a week, if that, maybe every other week. So maybe like 2 leads a month to 1 lead a day to a couple leads a day. Now we're at 15 leads a day. So it definitely works.
Hey, Joseph, one of the things that you mentioned, and I think you have been able, and I've been impressed on how you have implemented and leveraged these resources. And I learned about these playbooks and practice development guides through our participation in a hybrid managed program that the Microsoft Black Partner Growth Initiative is really supporting and providing our members an opportunity to kind of engage in that way. Can you talk about those practice development guides and what kind of content's in them and how you leverage those development guides to help you with your business?
Yeah, so they're a blueprint. They're a business plan essentially based on those practices, right? And so they cover everything from sales and marketing to technology, and they give resources to back it. So you'll get inside of a typical sales play guide or a GTM guide is you'll get how to position this to the customer, how to market this to the customer. You'll get how to do a kickoff call. Well, here's the slide deck to do the kickoff call. Here's what you need to cover from a delivery perspective. Here's the SOW or SOW template that you can use. Here's the cost estimate for you to build this out. So they take you from A to Z in terms of building a practice and doing the delivery of that practice to the customer. And then in addition to that, when doing business with Microsoft or doing business with anybody in a particular industry, you got to know the lingo. And you got to know the vernacular in which people are speaking in. And so as you may talk to your customer or talk to somebody in your office, in your field, a particular way, Microsoft has a particular vernacular that they want you to use in their engagement. So when you're talking to Microsoft resources, you should use that vernacular in talking to them because this is what they're driving their metrics off of, and this is what their reporting is built on. So you want to know the language, you want to know how to play the game. They give you the book on how to play the game.
Yeah, that's awesome, Joseph. I think that was one of the things I didn't even know existed before we got in that program, and I was privileged enough to see your presentation and how you are leveraging that masterfully to help you grow your business. One of the other things that I'm seeing is kind of a shift in the partner ecosystem, if you will, is this transition to partners who are service providers having to develop solutions and publish solutions. Can you talk about, because ideally, typically when people think of solutions, they think of an ISV or someone who's developing a product, if you will. Can you talk about how you've leveraged, let's say, solutions from a consulting perspective and kind of use that to grow?
Sure. So every year, like I said, they come out with their playbooks, their goals, etc. So this year, they're focused on what we call their workshops, and they have workshops that vary across each technology or each workload. So what we did was then, okay, so these are the workshops, and then with these workshops, actually Microsoft pays you, so they're essentially free to the customer if they qualify, because there's of course some kind of criteria around it. But as long as they meet the criteria, Microsoft ends up paying you to actually do these workshops. So from a consulting standpoint, we said, okay, well, why don't we do all the workshops for each one of them and then post them to the commercial marketplace, right? And so whether it's Viva, whether it's something with modern work, with Teams or Endpoint, we took those and posted those. And so that's one way that we approached it. And that's particularly from a workshop. And so the workshop, when you're talking to customers, free would get you into a lot of doors. And then in addition to that, since Microsoft is paying for these workshops, that then ties to some kind of initiative for the sellers, because part of maybe what they have to do in terms of their numbers to meet. You have to do X amount of workshops or X amount of dollars. So it's an easy transition for this Microsoft sellers to say, hey, we're going to give you a free workshop, and here's the partner that's going to do it for you. Right. And so that's another way for you marketing back to Microsoft, them going out to their clientele and pulling you in. And so that's how we utilize the workshop part of it. Then from a consulting standpoint, then you have a package, and selling packages is a lot easier, what I found, than trying to scope projects in terms of hours. So we really try to put packages together based on these workloads, and we base it on generally user account in the organization and how we kind of do pricing. So then within that package, you get a set of deliverables, right? And this is what we deliver, whether it's a workshop, whether it's an engagement to do some kind of deployment, and we package that up and then we post that onto the marketplace. And that's how we utilize it and leverage it.
Yep. And that's great. And I think the one thing that I learned and helped me recognize is, so for those of you on the call or on joining us today, one of the most important things is in terms of being able to offer those solutions, leverage the workshops, you do have to achieve your certifications and competencies. So you will need to get the silver and gold, and really gold should be your target, because that really then opens up a lot of other resources for you as a partner. So again, look at focusing on those areas where you have some strengths. A couple that I'll recommend right off the bat for those of you that are getting started is small and mid-market is one that, definitely very easy for you to get from a silver perspective. I think the low bar there is you just have to have 4 clients for silver competency. And then the next one obviously would be cloud productivity for those of you that are managed service providers. That would be the first 2 that I would say set your eyes on. And again, all of this stuff is in Partner Center. If you're not familiar with Partner Center, again, I would definitely register with, make sure you're registered with the Black Partner Growth Initiative. That's Microsoft's program, because they've got excellent onboarding resources for those of you that are new to the ecosystem. All right. One other question, I guess, for you, and again, around competencies, Joseph,
Sure.
Again, one of the things that, we're facing this, and I'm sure other partners are facing it, is how do you get to gold, right? The challenge to getting to gold. Can you talk about any kind of lessons learned or cheat codes, if you will, that you leverage in order to help you get so many of these gold competencies, if you will?
So I think first, if this is your business, you need to make investments into your business, and to make those investments, it comes in the form of competencies and the requirements of what needs to go with those competencies. And so for me, I started off with just one and focusing on what my core competency was. And back then it was Link to Skype for Business, which is communications. And so I really just focused on that. And then from there, I said, okay, what's your next strength? And probably could have been vice versa, was messaging. And so, what are the requirements? Like I said, they've changed quite a bit. So then it's quite easier back then. But this was my business. This is what my passion. This was what was driving me and paying the bills and getting me out of bed in the morning. So I had to make the investment inside my business to achieve it. Now, with that being said, in terms of cheat codes, that's a little bit different. So in terms of cheat codes, once I got my core competency and got my certifications, and I said, okay, which other ones can I get? And then once I got this messaging and not messaging and communications, cloud productivity and some of the other ones came along with it. As you said, they were low-hanging fruit. But then I said, okay, well, how do you get to market and how are you going to build these practices? And so my thing was start recruiting and start hiring and building your bench around people that have these certifications, and then make investments inside your organization, back into people in your organization. IT, there's a lot of attrition that goes on. People are always looking for the next best thing. People, particularly a lot of people that I found that works best with me and best in the organization, fit the company culture, are high functioning folks. And so they're always wanting to get more technology. So the way that I've learned to try to keep folks around is providing training, giving them resource to get these certifications. And so we have training servers we invested into, and paying for their tests, and doing those things so that they can get those certifications, but the certifications then help us to achieve these competencies. And then in terms of cheat code, building the bench, hiring or building the bench in terms of part-time resources, things of that nature, with people that have competencies in the areas that we're looking to drive business in. And so, doing deals in terms of with contractors that do limited engagement with you, but the part of that contract is that they're tying their certifications to your organization.
Awesome.
And that's one of the ways that I've done it in terms of getting some of the ones outside of my core competency. But then we end up going to business. So then where it started as a part-time engagement, now it's a full-time engagement. But you got to want to do it, right? And this is your business. If this is your business, this is what it takes to succeed. So
Awesome.
And I think everybody wants the opportunity to compete. I think that's all we want. I think that's part of these programs, these initiatives, is the opportunity to compete. I don't want to hand it to me. I don't want, I want to compete. I want to work for it. I don't need, it to be handed to me. So that's my approach.
You want to be in a room where it happens.
I want to be able to give me to the room. Like, get into the room.
You go.
I'll hustle you. So, and
I got a couple of questions here from our audience. Actually, Ebony Vaz asked, CEO of Above Promotions. Actually, Ebony, thank you for joining us. Her question is, yep, there it is on the screen. How do you assess your pricing and ensure it was competitive for the industry?
Ooh, that's a good one. I guess for me, I kind of have an understanding of in terms of overall pricing, but for me, I start looking at what makes sense for ECF and the sustainability of ECF, and take it from that perspective, and say, because before I probably was undercutting myself quite a bit, or be way out of the ballpark with pricing. So really getting down into the numbers of, what are my direct costs? What are my indirect costs? How do I apply that across these contracts for the year going into it? And doing an analysis that way. And so, I think we all know during ballpark where certain rates are and what the big time companies charge and, what the little guys charge. But for me, it was really focusing on ECF and what works for ECF and in terms of what's going to maintain profitability, how it's going to fuel future growth, how it's going to fuel the initiatives that I have internally, like, the training programs, and taking it from that perspective, and then come up with a cost from there.
Excellent. Got another question here from Lucas Diaz. Did you have any PCI requirements to achieve your gold competency? If so, how did you satisfy those as an emerging company?
No, not that I remember having any PCI requirements to achieve gold competency. I don't think there's anything that's tied there. But they've changed in Y22, but I don't require any PCI requirements for any of them.
Okay. Let's see here. Any other questions, Victor? Oh, we got Nasha. Nasha, welcome to the stage.
Hey, Joseph, on the PCI score, just to clarify, that's for BizApps specifically, for the BizApps competencies. And yeah, the bar is ridiculously high to get that done. So you're going to be selling for a while.
Yeah. So and go back to cheat codes. So there's always a way, and so it's all about getting to the right gatekeeper. And so with anything, I don't sell it for no. And so I spend a lot of time, particularly on a lot of tickets, because like once you've been on the other side of the fence, you know what's achievable, right, or what's possible. And so you got to keep pushing, right. And so I have constant tickets open for various things, and I spend a lot of my time, with tickets and working with Microsoft on various things and not when I say tickets, not the technical level. This is with competencies, looking at the verbiage of the competency of the requirements. Well, this says and or. You guys need to clarify this, and be persistent, and that's how I kind of go about it. And then there's always a will in the way.
So Lucas is a Dynamics partner. That's why you'd ask. So Lucas, I guess the moral of the story is reach out to Joseph and figure out the back doors.
Yeah, but actually, I have tickets open right now for the ERP one, as well as for the cloud applications one, because it's not clear for both of those of what's needed, right? So if you look at the requirements for those, it does not take into consideration CSPs. This is for just direct on-prem licensing, and that's not the market. So I'll probably end up getting on a technicality because of that. But you got to be persistent. You got to read the language of the competency and what they're requiring.
Very good. And just one last question. This is from Roy Hodge, one of our accelerator graduates. Thank you, Roy, for being here today. His question is, where did you find talent?
Where did I find talent? All over. And so, I have resources in several continents. So, but not all over. And so for me, it's been a learning process. And so as I was saying earlier, I've learned that I work better with high functioning people that are very self-motivated. But there's a drawback to that. Those folks still need a lot of time from me, or they at least want time from me on a one-on-one, on a weekly, or on a daily basis, right? Just to hear them out. So you got to kind of learn yourself. And then find folks that fit your culture. But I do use a lot of Upwork. I go there and do limited engagements, and get folks from there and put them on a 9-day contract. See if it works out. If it doesn't work out, then we move on, right? We get through the project and move on. But I do a lot of Upwork, and then I have just relationships. I just spend a lot of time on various job boards in terms of just going look at resumes and seeing if they've come pretty good looking at resumes and figuring out that person is going to fit. Because I say if it's bullet point resume, I actually probably won't reach out to you, even though you may have some other things I like. The more in depth your resume is, generally is the indication of your experience and your breadth of a product. So they tend to want to brag about their accomplishments via their resume.
Joseph, we want to thank you today. Thank you for being here today. Lots of insights, man. You are an inspiration, and I want to be like you when I grow up. That's for
sure. Likewise. Likewise. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Come out. Thank you.
Turn it over to Nasha.
Very good. So I'm between you and the networking, so I will make this brief. Thank you very much, Joseph, for that presentation. I had the pleasure of meeting Joseph as we were in the process of launching BCPA. So to have him come back and share what it is that we're striving to get partners to, I think is phenomenal. Couple of announcements. So we already talked about the next Power Forum coming up. So definitely be at that. That's Black History Month, and it'll be run by my partners in crime, Danny and David Brown. So that's going to be a phenomenal event. Expect an email, LinkedIn, make sure you're there. BCPA Rise, so March 19th. It is our second year in existence. So we'll be celebrating what we've been able to achieve. and really looking forward to what we're going to do to drive revenue and drive business into each of your pockets over the next year. BCPA's primary mission is to drive opportunities to our partners and make sure that you can build sustainable practices going forward. So in that vein, I had posted earlier, we are launching an Azure Practice Accelerator. We are doing this with Henderson Group, which is the #1 Azure partner. According to Reg globally, we haven't validated that, definitely in the US. So it is something that you want to be a part of. Small group mentoring sessions, peer group to grow your practice with. If you're seriously interested in that, please send us an email, azureaccelerate@bcpalliance.com. Shortly on the heels of that, we're launching another similar type initiative with our partner, AvePoint, specifically around modern work and migration workloads. The beautiful thing about both of these engagements is that we're wrapping the coaching and the mentoring along with the ability to receive opportunities from these larger partners. So we're really excited about those two programs. And last but not least, we've been working with the Microsoft federal teams on driving and building federal practices. The team has made huge progress of late. And so we have more to share on that coming up. And as far as programs, we're running those. The last but definitely not least program, we had mentioned our accelerator that we're running. And we've revamped the accelerator into really a growth program that's focused around strategy. So we are looking at about 5 or 6 sessions. If you have an interest, we have an accelerator application on our website, bcpalliance.com. Please feel free to apply. My mentor, who really helped me drive my growth over the last few years from 500,000 to over $1 million, is going to be doing a lot of the mentoring and coaching. David will be helping around presentations. So that is something you definitely want to be involved in. Go to the website and sign up for it. And with that, happy 2022 to everyone. Danny, David, I don't know if we had anything else, but it's a pleasure to be here. I'm always empowered and energized when I get to see this many Black entrepreneurs in the room helping each other to build. And that spirit of sharing that Joseph had mentioned. We published our first solution because of the information guidance that Joseph was willing to share freely. So as you listen to this content, people will make themselves available, act on it, and make sure that you're continuing to grow and progress. And with that, I'll turn it over to Danny and David if they have anything else. And we'll go over to the networking, which is my favorite part of spending time with BCPA partners.
Well, thank you, Naisha, for those kind words. And I want to thank our presenter, Joseph, for his insight. Incredible engagement. Thank you all for your questions. Right now, as Naisha shared, we're going to break up. We're going to do some incredible networking. But as we transition into the networking, I want to encourage everyone here, make sure you meet one new professional today. Interact with one of the BCPA board members. And then I also want to encourage you to find a new partnership opportunity. Somehow in your conversation, bring up the Microsoft program you're going to leverage to help grow your practice. So let's go ahead and break up here into the networking. Let's get to know each other. Let's engage in conversation. And let's continue to push the vision of building our organizations in the year 2022. Thank you guys for joining, and be sure to keep up with all the activities that BCPA has going on, including the Power Forum every month and the BCPA Rise event. We'll see you guys in the networking rooms. Thank you very much.